Good morning. It is absolutely brass monkeys outside. I'm going to do a video. I'll probably voice over this video because I'm going to have a load of background noise. Got a dryer running and stuff, but I've got this Bernina, what is it? It's the 1020. It's got absolutely everything with it. This is going up for sale probably later on today, so just ready for December, ready for all the Christmas sales. But yeah, it's really nice condition. 1020. We have got full accessory box. It's even coming with a cut and sew attachment. It's worth 125 quid just on its own. So yeah, I'm going to crack on, service this machine, leave the camera running, whack some tunes on, and get it up for sale. So yeah, you might find this interesting. I'll probably, like I say, I'll probably do a voiceover when I watch it back, but I'm just going to crack on. So just taking the flywheel off to remove the side cover. That would be the first thing to do. The side cover has to come off before the back cover, and when taking the covers off, don't forget that there are two screws underneath the machine, one that holds the side cover on and one that holds the back cover on. See all the time these broken where we have engineers that are not used to getting into these Berninas, certainly in the old days, and they just pulled the covers off and snapped the little bits of plastic that hold the little nuts that holds the screw underneath. So that's exactly what's happening now. Just undoing that screw, and then we should be able to just take the side cover off. So again, removing the last screw for the bottom of the machine that holds the back cover on. Once that's removed, it's just the visible screws on the back cover, and then the cover can be removed. So just going to turn the machine around now and remove the needle, the presser foot, the needle plate, I'd imagine, and the bobbin case and shuttle. So as you might have noticed, there's a few extra bits and bobs on the workbench now. I am just removing the little screw that holds on the extension table off the back of the free arm. Then there's 2 screws to remove from the cover, and then we can take the free arm back cover off. So now all the covers are off the machine, we can turn our attention to the PCB circuit board. There's 2 screws that hold this onto the machine. There's the one at the top that I'm just unscrewing, and then about 1/3 of the way down on the right hand side there's a second screw. It's a thinner, longer screw, and that's the screw that is the last one that holds the PCB to the machine. Once that's undone, the cables can be disconnected and the PCB can either be swung down or removed carefully from the machine. So with the PCB now removed from the machine, we're going to move the machine out of the way. We don't need to worry about that for now because we're going to concentrate on the PCB. It's got its original capacitor, the reefer 0.1 UF capacitor that's quite common to blow. So just plug it in the soldering iron and we're going to let that heat up and then swap the capacitor out. So I have various boxes full of resistors and capacitors for fixing sewing machines. However, I found it really hard to find the most common capacitor that I change, which is this one. It turned out that the bag of capacitors was actually in the top of my toolbox, so I'm looking through all my capacitors at the moment, trying to find the right value, but unbeknown to me, it had been left in the top of the toolbox from a job previously in the week. So once I found that capacitor, it was a straightforward swap. So next we have to take the board out of the plastic housing. It's held together with 2 screws. The screws are accessed from the back. As you can see, I'm just removing the first, followed by the second screw. And once that plastic housing is taken away, you can get access to all the solder points for every component that is held on that circuit board, which is then going to enable us to take out any components that look visually like there could be issues with them. Obviously the original capacitor, we know that is likely to fail in the very near future, so we're removing that, but we'll also have a good look over the board and just look for anything that looks out of place. So sorry for my head being in the way of this shot. I'm by no way a professional video maker, but I've just removed the original capacitor and now we're installing the brand new capacitor in its place. So again, just visually checking the board, checking that there's nothing wrong, nothing obvious that looks like it's burnt out or any loose solder connections, and then we can pop the board safely back into its housing, put it to one side, and then we can focus on the rest of the machine. So we've removed the screws that are holding the head cover on. That's this sort of aluminium piece I'm just about to remove. Now we've got better access to the needle bar and the mechanisms in there. It's the first chance we've really been able to have a proper look in the head and see the condition of what's going on. Also now I'm going to remove the machine motor as well, so we can see better the mechanical parts of the machine. Now we can see the mechanisms moving freely. There doesn't seem to be anything really binding. So I can take a little pot containing alcohol and some cotton buds and some wipes and clean out a lot of the sort of dried on oil, any sort of bits and pieces really that shouldn't be in the machine. It's quite a clean machine, so we don't need to take out the lower carriage, which is pretty good. So we can start getting in there and cleaning the shafts, the needle bar shaft, the presser foot shaft, and cleaning out the top end of the machine. Now I've noticed a bit of rust on the bars that attach the handle to the machine. So this is the only time you'll ever see me put any WD-40 near a sewing machine, and that's just to soak onto the rust, and that will help with cleaning the rust off in a little while with a bit of 1000 grit wet and dry sandpaper. So, like I said previously, the machine's been really well maintained, and I'm not worried about the lower carriage of the machine. There's not a huge amount of fluff or lint build-up sort of in the feed dogs and the areas you'd expect if it hadn't been serviced. However, I've made a decision now that I'm going to take the back, I guess you'd call it the chassis casing. I don't know a technical word for it. Normally you wouldn't remove this part of the machine because getting everything back in is a issue, but on this machine it's virtually impossible to take the tension unit out without removing this. So it was a decision that was made. I've done it a few times, but certainly if you're attempting to do this at all at home, don't. I've done lots of these and it can be a real headache, but there is a huge amount of fluff and lint on the tension unit, and I need to get it out of the machine to clean it properly. So all the screws are removed. We're going to carefully remove this sort of, like I said, chassis. Where I've just put that screwdriver is the worst shaft. That's the shaft that carries the mechanism that sits on the cam stack, and it's really hard to reseat once you move it. There's two little washers on the far side, and it's just really difficult when you're putting this back together again to get that right. So we've now removed the screws that hold the tension unit in place. This is the last screw coming out. It's 2 screws. It's the same in all the 1000 series machines. Once those screws are out, then we can manipulate the tension unit and move that out from the machine. So we have now successfully removed the tension unit, and you can see why it had to come out. Look at the fluff and lint caught in both the front and back side of the tension unit. There's no way to properly clean this unless you remove it. So we've now got a Q-tip, and that is dipped in alcohol. The reason we use alcohol for cleaning, it's 99.9% alcohol, is that it just evaporates. So there's no sort of solvent or anything that's left in the machine once we've finished with the cleaning. So we're pretty much done now with cleaning this. Last thing, we're just going to run this lint-free wipe. It's a dry wipe. I can dip it in alcohol if need be, but they don't really tear and they don't leave any bits and pieces wherever you put them. So there's no, if you imagine like a baby wipe, some of them can be quite fibrous, whereas these wipes aren't. So that just enables me to clean properly in between the tension discs and make sure that tension unit is as good as it can be. So next we're going to start oiling some of the parts in the machine. The oil we use, which is the correct oil as specified by Bernina, is a Mobile Velasite number 10 high-speed spindle oil, and we sell that in both 30ml bottles and in the 50cc long reach precision oiler, which I'm using here. It has a 5-inch tip and enables you to get oil in very tight parts of virtually any sewing machine. So it's really good to have. So here I'm turning my attention back to the handle. Earlier on in the video you saw me squirt some WD-40 onto this because it's showing some sort of old rust, and I'm just getting the 1000 grit sandpaper and a little bit of oil as well now, just to clean most of that rust off. There will be a bit of tarnishing of the, I'd like to say it's stainless steel, but it's not because it rusts. Stainless steel doesn't, but the steel that this handle's made out of will be tarnished, but we'll stop it rusting any further. So we've been really careful not to move anything in the upper part of the machine whilst we've been cleaning and lubricating. This plate can be really tricky to get on, and obviously it acts as a bearing across the machine for all the spindles that run horizontally. So everything from the cam stack bearing to the little sort of shafts that come across the machine all have to be perfectly aligned and clipped in. So it takes a little while just to align this and get it perfect. So here we've had to remove the back chassis cover again, simply because I forgot to replace a little clip that holds the thread guide on the top of the machine back in. It's impossible to do this with the chassis cover in place, and it's just one of those things that I overlooked. It's not a part on a lot of the 1000 series machines. As time went on, they stopped attaching the clip that way, so yeah, it's just something I overlooked, and obviously it will take me longer to put the machine back together again now, because I've pretty much done the tricky part, and now we've got to go over that again and reattach this cover and hopefully get everything lined up. Thank you. So now we can start reinstalling the motor back into the machine. Everything we have needed to do so far has gone relatively smoothly, so it's pretty much the rebuild. I added a tiny drop of oil onto the bearings of the motor shaft, and yeah, so now we're just fixing the belt around the pulley on the motor that has the fan, and we're going to get that all lined up and secure the motor into the base of the machine. So that's the motor now back in the machine. We can reinstall the circuit board. So it's the reverse procedure of what we did when we took it out. So the little hinge clips are the first thing to line up, which I'm doing now. Now that's on its hinge, we can start reattaching the wires and cables. So that's the main sort of power cable there, and then we work our way up the machine and finally put in the bobbin winder and the light unit cable. So the back cover's going back on, and of course that's reattached with the 2 black screws and the silver peg screw that gets tightened up with a hex bolt, and that provides the back support for the extension table. So the last 2 screws of the back cover are going in, and once that's done it'll just be a case of putting the side cover back onto the machine. So the side cover's going back on now. Again, that's secured underneath the machine and by the screw that sits behind the flywheel, so that needs to be done up. Then we can put the flywheel on with its counterweight and the flywheel screw and then its cover. So now we're turning our attention just to cleaning out the race properly. A lot of the time on these machines, believe it or not, that is quite often all that some techs do in the UK. They have a little look down the take-up lever slot, see if they can pull any thread from there and just clean the race and the feed dogs. So another bit of the machine that gets quite dirty is the pattern selector area. So here I'm just going to take the top cover off the pattern selector, and then once we've done that we can just clean in the top there and just make that look nicer. It also exposes the top of the cam so you can see everything properly, but it really is the shaft, that lever that you can see sticking up by my thumb. It is that part that when you're taking the back chassis cover off that I did in order to take the tension unit out, it's the shaft that all that mechanism sits on that is the real tricky one to keep in position. And when you get it out of position, it's kind of got, it's not circular, it's got a flat edge on one side, and to fit that in the housing, keep pressure on it without dropping the two little washers that kind of space it onto the cam is really quite a challenge. I've got it wrong multiple times, and if that pops out when you remove that back cover, then it can take you almost half a day to a day to get it back in properly. It can be really tricky, so don't try doing that at home. So we're happy with everything we've done with the machine now. You might have noticed I haven't actually plugged it in as of yet, so done that little bit of board work. So I'm going to get my seaward pat tester out now and clamp I usually use the needle bar on these machines because they're all metal, so we clamp the clamp to a metal part of the machine that's attached to the chassis. The plug goes into the pat tester, and then we need to make sure the machine's turned on and the foot control's depressed, and then that will give us our readings and let us know that the machine is safe and ready for use. So we've turned the pat tester on, and it's a double insulated product, so we're pressing to do that test and the machine will run through, and as we get our results it comes up with a pass, so it's good to go. Here you can see I've opened up the accessory box, and you can see by my thumb There's two different types of bobbins. There's Bernina bobbins and generic 15K bobbins, and you don't want to be using the generic 15K bobbins in your Bernina. Ensure that your bobbins are genuine Bernina bobbins. Now, I sell them, I buy them in their hundreds, so they are not packaged, but when you order them, you can order them in, I think, 5s and 10s. So there's a box of Bernina bobbins there, so we're going to pick out the bobbins that we need to replace the 15K bobbins, and there's a couple of bobbins in the accessory case that also came with the machine that are Bernina bobbins. So now we're going to wind one of our new bobbins. We're using a very bright orange thread, and when I wind the bobbin, I always put my finger on top of the thread cone. It just helps keep a nice tension on the thread as it winds onto the bobbin. And we're probably going to fill this bobbin 3/4 full, ready to test the machine. And here we go. We are now going to test the machine and see how it stitches.